Cedric Ceballos wasn't supposed to make the NBA, but he outworked everyone and built a career off hustling and using his athleticism and timing to score ridiculously efficiently for a 6'6" small forward. His shooting and defensive effort left something to be desired at times, but overall he played important roles on a few competitive teams, while even showing he had the talent to be the star of a team for a couple years in his prime. It's a shame injuries held him back from being the full player he likely could have been, as what he showed in a limited 11-year career was exceptional. His name seems to only be associated with a particular dunk contest dunk nowadays, but he was so much more than a novelty act, and he deserves more recognition. So today we're going to jog your memory on the garbage man, Cedric Ceballos. Cedric Ceballos played his high school ball at the legendary Dominguez High School, known for producing NBA players like Tyson Chandler, Tayshaun Prince, and Brandon Jennings. But Ceballos' life would have likely been very different if his star teammate Ronnie Coleman wouldn't have broken his wrist, which gave Ceballos an opportunity to start. And Ceballos was able to translate that high school opportunity into a spot on the team at Ventura Community College. Ceballos would help the team to the 1987 state championship as a freshman, and then averaged 28.3 points per game in his sophomore year, before transferring to Cal State Fullerton for his junior and senior seasons. Ceballos showed his raw talent from his first year with the Titans, as his light touch around the basket and relentless offensive rebounding drew the attention of many, including legendary coach Jerry Tarkanian, who said that if his UNLV Rebels would have had Ceballos on their team in '89, they would have won the national title. And Ceballos even gave UNLV defensive star and future NBAer Stacey Augmon all that he could handle in a game versus the Rebels. However, even with Ceballos' addition to the team, they still weren't a great team, and Cal State Fullerton only finished 16-13 and missed the tournament. Ceballos would play great though, as he led the Big West Conference in scoring and was second in rebounds, as he averaged just over 21 points, nearly 9 rebounds, and an assist and a half per game, while being named first team All-Big West. Ceballos' senior season would not see much change in team success, as the team went 13-16 and missed the tournament. Ceballos matured this season, as the season prior he had an incident where he shot poorly when he felt his teammates were unhappy with him, as well as refusing to enter a game when his coach wouldn't let him show support for his teammate. These issues didn't plague Ceballos this year, and he upped his shooting percentage by over 4% and averaged a double-double on career-high scoring and rebounding, which included a 33-17 game and then a 27-21 game a couple weeks later. Ceballos would also be joined by another future NBA player, however he was a freshman and had an insignificant role during this season. And for the regular season, Ceballos averaged just over 23 points, 12 rebounds, and 1.5 assists per game, with another all-conference selection. Ceballos' play had pushed his name into the NBA draft conversation, and he was being praised by some big-name NBA executives. There was talk about Ceballos possibly being a late first-round pick, but he ended up going later second round at number 48. But nonetheless, he got drafted, which is something he probably didn't expect 4 years earlier. Ceballos joined a great Phoenix Suns team coming off of a Western Conference Finals appearance. This team was full of great players who all averaged over double digits for the season. So it would be hard for Ceballos to get playing time on such a deep team. And even though he only played about 11.5 minutes per game, he really made the most of them, as he averaged over 8 points. Ceballos definitely had his areas he needed to improve though, specifically his free throws, as he shot about 66%. The Suns would face Stockton, Malone, and the Utah Jazz in the first round, where they would fall in 4. Kevin Johnson would struggle this series, as he would average nearly 10 points less than his regular season average on over 20% worse shooting from the field. Ceballos saw a decreased role, earning only 8 minutes a game to average about 5 points. But his hard work and good shot selection was on display, as he shot over 58%. And for the regular season, Ceballos averaged about 8 points, 2.5 rebounds, and half an assist per game. 1992 was another successful regular season for the Suns, as they finished 53-29. The Suns had lost Xavier McDaniel, but Tim Perry filled the void as best he could, which meant Ceballos' role and playing time didn't really change, as he averaged about 11 minutes per game. Tom Chambers was also starting to decline, as his scoring average dipped and would continue to dip for the rest of his career. But the Suns again found themselves in the playoffs and were able to sweep the Spurs in the first round, but then they would lose to the Blazers in 5 in round 2. These playoffs were the first time Ceballos got a true opportunity, and in 23.5 minutes per game, he would average 13.5 points and 6.5 rebounds, which included 2.5 offensive rebounds to lead the team, which would be something he would become known for over his career. The Portland series would also see Ceballos shoot 60% or higher in 3 games, and for the regular season, Ceballos would average about 7 points, 2.5 rebounds, and 1 assist per game. And another highlight of this season would be Ceballos winning the dunk contest by performing his famous blindfolded dunk. There was a big change in Phoenix to begin the 93 season, as the round mound of rebound was now leading the team en route to an MVP year where the Suns would finish first in the NBA at 62-20. Ceballos finally got some good playing time this season and even started 46 of the 74 games he played in. Ceballos continued to put his hustle on display, as even though he was nearly 7 rebounds per game behind leading rebounder Barkley, he was second in offensive rebounds with nearly the same as Barkley. Ceballos also would lead the league in field goal percentage at 57.6%. But his knack for converting second chance opportunities helped bump up his shooting. This would also be the first season Ceballos averaged double digits, as he finished 5th on the team. He would have a 40-point game on March 9th versus Sacramento as well. Ceballos would see a huge minutes decrease in the playoffs. He would struggle in the first 2 rounds, but was picking up his play in the Western Conference Finals versus Seattle, including a 21-point Game 1. But in Game 6, he would fracture his left foot and miss the remainder of the playoffs. And as we all know, the Bulls beat the Suns in 6 in the NBA Finals to win their 3rd straight title. For the regular season, Ceballos would average about 13 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 1 assist per game. He also participated in and lost the 93 dunk contest. Ceballos would re-fracture his foot a couple weeks before the beginning of the 94 regular season and wouldn't make his first appearance of the year until January 9. When he did return, he saw himself start in 43 of the 53 games he played in and averaged over 19 points on over 53% shooting. And although Ceballos showed his ability to take good high percentage shots, he also wouldn't shoot a single 3-pointer for the 2nd year in a row. But I guess that's good shot selection too. The Suns dealt with a lot more injuries this year, but still went 56-26 and swept the Warriors in the first round, but lost to the Rockets in the second round of the playoffs. Ceballos started just 8 out of 10 playoff games and only averaged about 10 points on 46% shooting, which was low for him. Another concern around Ceballos was his consistency, specifically on the defensive end, as he seemed to pick and choose when he wanted to exert himself on defense. Former NBA coach Cotton Fitzsimmons would substantiate this in 1992 when he would say, when Cedric wants a defensive rebound as bad as he wants an offensive rebound, he'll be pretty good. For the regular season, Ceballos would average just over 19 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 1.5 assists per game. He would also impressively corral a career-high 10 offensive rebounds on January 22nd versus Portland. Prior to the 1995 season, Ceballos was traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers had trouble recovering from the sudden retirement of Magic Johnson prior to the 92 season, and were just now starting to build something new in LA after the retirement of James Worthy. The Lakers looked to be a team on the rise with their expected scoring trio of Ceballos, second-year guard Nick Van Exel, and rookie Eddie Jones. They also had 2 effective big men in Vlade Divac and Eldon Campbell, and all of them were 26 or younger. The Lakers would win 15 more games and finish 48-34, and Ceballos was the team's leading scorer as he shot over 50% and had a career high in rebounds. But another label which would follow him most of his career is injury prone, as he would only play in 58 games this season. Ceballos would score a career high 50 points in a December 20th win versus Minnesota, and his great performance this season would earn him his first and only All-Star selection. But injuries would keep him out of the game. The Lakers made the playoffs, and they would beat the Sonics, then lose to the Spurs. But Ceballos would perform poorly throughout the playoffs, as he averaged about 14 points on 38% shooting. Surprisingly, during the regular season, Ceballos averaged nearly 40% on threes while shooting 2.5 per game, and he still shot a respectable 36% from 3 while averaging 5 threes per game in the playoffs. And for the regular season, Ceballos would average about 22 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 assists per game. The 96 season was both good and bad for Ceballos. He played in 78 games, which was a career high, and the second and last time he would play in 70 or more games. He would lead the team in scoring and shoot 53% from the field, but his 3-point percentage would drop to under 28%. Ceballos would have an incident he would be suspended for later in the season, as after a March 19th blowout win versus Seattle, where he would score just 2 points on 1 of 7 shooting in what was the first of a home-and-home, Ceballos would miss the team flight to Seattle, and the team would not hear from him for days. When he did get in contact with the team, he allegedly reported a family emergency, but other reports said that he was spotted water skiing on Lake Havasu. He then would say that he planned to fly to Seattle on his own, but he had boat troubles and wound up stranded and couldn't contact the team. Teammates were not happy, specifically Magic Johnson, who had come out of retirement to play 33 games for the Lakers this season. And after finishing 53-29, the Lakers would face and lose to the Houston Rockets in the first round, as Hakeem Olajuwon was too much for the Lakers. Although it was only 4 games, this would be the best postseason of Ceballos' career, as he averaged a team-high 19 points and a postseason career-high 8.3 rebounds. And for the regular season, Ceballos averaged about 21 points, 7 rebounds, and 1.5 assists per game. After playing in just 8 games for the Lakers to start the 1997 season, as he tore his patellar tendon in mid-November, Ceballos was dealt to the Suns for Robert Horry on January 11th. There's a strong possibility that Ceballos' discipline and maturity issues from the previous year played a part in this trade, but also the Lakers' acquisition of Shaquille O'Neal and the emergence of Eddie Jones decreased Ceballos' value to them. Plus, they had a rookie shooting guard out of Lower Merion who seemed like he had some potential. Ceballos would start for the Suns and team with Jason Kidd and Kevin Johnson, as he averaged about 17 points and 7 rebounds, while getting close to 32 minutes per game. But the last 10 games of the season would see the Suns elect to roll out a 3-guard lineup, substituting Rex Chapman for Ceballos. And Ceballos would go down to receiving 13.5 minutes per game. But the Suns would go 13-2 in the final 15 games of the year. They snuck into the playoffs at 40-42 and played hard, but lost to the Sonics in 5 games. Ceballos struggled with the decreased role as he struggled to get going in the playoffs and provide his usual scoring punch. Additionally, he was playing a lot of power forward, which was not his natural position. The regular season saw Ceballos put up averages of about 14.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 1.5 assists per game. 1998 would see Ceballos appear in 35 games for the Suns, primarily in a bench role, before being traded to the Mavericks at the trade deadline for Dennis Scott. Ceballos would fit in great, as he would average about 17-6 for the Michael Finley-led Mavericks. But he would be shut down for the year after just 12 games for the Mavs with a slight meniscus tear. The Mavs were a weak team, and this would be the first time in Ceballos' career where he missed the playoffs, as the team finished 20-62. And overall for the regular season, Ceballos averaged about 11.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 1.5 assists per game. After the lockout, Ceballos wanted a 5 to 7 year contract from the Mavs, but they didn't want to commit to that. And after finding no other suitors, Ceballos signed a 1-year, $725,000 deal to stay in Dallas. This was a lockout-shortened season, but it was even shorter for Ceballos, as he fractured both wrists just 13 games into the season and missed the rest of the year for a 19-31 Mavs team. And for the regular season, Ceballos would average about 12.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 1 assist per game. Ceballos got a 2-year, $7.4 million contract from the Mavs in the offseason and would play an important role for the 2000 Mavericks, as he played 69 games in a bench role and finished 3rd on the team in scoring behind Finley and second-year forward Dirk Nowitzki. The Mavs would improve, but not enough to make the playoffs, as they finished 40-42. For the regular season, Ceballos would average about 16.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 1.5 assists per game. 2001 would be Ceballos' final season, and he found himself in Detroit after an off-season trade, but he couldn't find his place on the team as he averaged about 6 points in 13 games with the team. He would then be acquired by the Miami Heat, as their star center Alonzo Mourning would be out for most of the year with kidney problems. Ceballos wouldn't fare much better in Miami, as in 27 games he averaged about 7 points. But the Heat won 50 games and made the playoffs. Even with Mourning playing, the Heat were swept by Charlotte in 3 games, and Ceballos barely saw the court during the series. Overall for the regular season, Ceballos would average about 6.5 points, 2.5 rebounds, and half an assist per game. Ceballos would sign a training camp deal with the Nuggets prior to the 2002 season, but after a couple of preseason appearances, he would be cut and never play in the NBA again. He would still play basketball for another decade in various leagues both in the US and internationally. So you could look at Ceballos' athletic ability and physical gifts and think he should have been better. But for a player who didn't start on his high school team and then went to community college for 2 years, he did pretty well, carving out an 11-year career. And while he had his weaknesses when it came to long-range shooting and consistent effort, especially on the defensive end, his ability to clean up the offensive glass and score second-chance points was better than most, if not all, of the stars in the NBA at that time. And to do it at his size made it even more special. Additionally, he was injury-prone, but when he was mostly healthy, he put up all-star level stats, so one can only wonder how his career would have played out if he was more durable. But his play was exciting, and his hustle was a trait that any fan could get behind. And although his contributions are overlooked in an era with so many greats at his position, he showed that he was more than qualified to step on an NBA court during his career. And that's it for today's episode, so remember to subscribe for more videos like this one. If you enjoyed this, you might like this episode on one of his underrated teammates. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.